All right, welcome to another episode of Math on the Rocks. Just as an always, we got to always remember to remind people to subscribe either on, let's see, Apple or Spotify or YouTube. We've got video versions, we've got audio versions. But we're doing a special introduction. Why are we doing a special introduction, Cole?
Oh, I was just going to say, be careful there, Duane. People are going to start thinking we're official with all those titles you're throwing out there. But no, this is kind of like the pre-cap recording for our CMC Math on the Rocks Live that we just did at CMC-South a few weeks ago. So super excited.
Yeah, and so, people need to know that what you're going to hear is our first try at trying to be professional on the road. And true to form, it was a little rocky, but we had a blast. So welcome to this episode of one of our guests from CMC South. All right, welcome to another episode of Math on the Rocks. We've got this special edition. Gerard says it's the Math on the Rocks after hours. Is that what you said?
That's correct.
Yeah, because now that I referred to you, you kind of have to say something. No miming allowed at that moment.
I'm not supposed to be the protagonist in here. We have three legends showing up.
See, the real trick was we surprise guest, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I see.
Because when we hit record, we never really know what's going to happen, and so you're
That's
going
the
to.
magic.
That's
Real
one
magic
word.
happen behind camera.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see.
Director's cut.
The extended version. Alrighty. So first off, you got to point out we are in probably the most beautiful background of any podcast ever. This is kind of cool. Cole, where are we?
We are in Palm Springs, and I looked up over here and just realized I see the moon and the sun at the same time.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's kind of a cool little thing. Yeah.
That's
So we're
really
at the
cool.
Renaissance Hotel here at CMC South down here, Palm Springs.
And what are we doing?
Well, today we are Math on the Rocks Live, and so it's great. We had studio audiences with us earlier. And then we got Albert with us here because we said we want a little extra torture today, and so we're bringing him in for the after hours. Gracious enough, though, to join us for our first actual Math on the Rocks.
On the Rocks.
Right,
It's
and
like
so
real life. Yeah, not exactly rocky because it's beer, but I like this. Finally, we're doing a podcast not in our office, so we can kind of.
Or during work hours, or during, right? We're able to have, like,
Yes.
band beyond that, and so.
Friday.
Right, Friday.
Yes, it's Friday.
Gosh.
This is perfect. All right, we've set you up, Albert. This is
No
going to be
pressure.
good. All right. Well, first off, but we gotta talk about some business first before we hit Albert. CMC South. I didn't mean hit you like. That is totally not what I meant. Before we start hitting on, talking about.
It didn't
you.
help that you didn't hit his leg.
Yeah,
and you're just preparing him for what's going to come next, and
there you go.
This poor podcast is going downhill already. CMC Central. How are we doing in terms of CMC Central?
So we're good. We have all of our pre-symposium and keynote speakers lined up. We have an overwhelming majority of the breakouts. I think we have about 8, maybe 10 spots left, but I mean, by the end of this weekend, we'll be full for sure. And then good, registration opens on Tuesday.
Oh, good. Good. I had 2 people today ask me about that. It's like, when is registration open? Which means we are now a destination symposium, which is exactly why we chose to move it to Bakersfield and have a permanent home so that people can start to anticipate it on an annual basis. And so this is it. We're starting something. It's good. So what are we doing here?
Well, we are recording our podcast live, Math on the Rocks Live here, right outside by the pool. And with us, we have Albert.
Hello.
And so almost Dr. Albert, right?
Almost.
Yeah.
Before Christmas, it should be done.
There we go. Awesome. So Albert's joining us, and we're going to have a great conversation. We've gotten to know Albert a little bit over the last several months. He's come and done some work at our office. He's led a couple presentations for us. So we're really going to have to bring out the big guns, Duane, with our questions today. I'll really stick it to him because he, kind of a hot shot. So we got to make sure, that, we give him those hard ones. But also, he wrote the foreword to the new Spanish version of the Building Thinking Classrooms book. So he and Peter have been doing some work together, right?
Yes. I had the chance to write part of the foreword with two of my colleagues, Cecilia and Laura, and we had fun working with Peter. Yeah.
So it's great. So I'm going to pick your brain about that experience too, because why not? Yeah, that sounds like really cool. So we got a lot to talk about for sure.
Good. We'll get it started.
All right. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit? Who are you? I think you said you had some two truths and a lie you wanted to open up with, huh?
Yeah, I loved at the NCTM 2 or 3 years ago. I saw Robert Kaplinski introducing himself through Two Truths and a Lie, and I thought, let's make these guys suffer a little bit before they make me. So you're gonna guess.
Okay.
Okay.
And let's see if you make it. So first fact, we'll see if it's true or a lie. I played when I was 14 a soccer game against Lionel Messi. Are you aware of the legend in soccer, Lionel Messi, now playing in the U.S.?
And thank you for speaking our language and saying soccer.
Yes.
Yeah, I get
We're
it.
gonna dive later why my accent is funny. Okay, second fact about me is I won a trip to Lisbon thanks to knowing the Fibonacci sequence. Okay. And third fact about me is I had a brief moment of fame as a kid in Spain because I was in the opening of Sesame Street.
Oh, like the Spanish version?
Of course, the Spanish version of Sesame Street.
Damn. Those are so, like, specific. Like, I don't know.
If I had to guess, I'd say it's the last one, Sesame Street.
Why?
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, so I was thinking about it. You're not old enough to play with Lionel Messi. So I feel like that one automatically is gone.
Okay.
Because he's on his way almost to retirement. So that one
Right.
doesn't quite make sense.
Sure.
So you think the lie is...
So I think the truth. Oh, so it's two truths.
So truth and a lie.
and a
You have to
lie.
find the lie.
So the lie, you're kind of saying since...
I'm 3 years younger than Lionel Messi.
Really? Oh, see, that could have been...
Well, now I almost feel like that's the lie, but that's okay.
Because that's pretty big. That's a pretty big thing. The Fibonacci sequence, I'm going to say, is true. I'm going to say that's.
Why would somebody say that?
Well, because why would you make up a bragging about knowing the Fibonacci sequence? Like that's got to be, that's got to be real. That's got to be real.
The whole purpose of being here today is bragging about me knowing the Fibonacci sequence.
So I'm going to go with that's true. I'm going to go with, you know what? I'm going to say the lie is the Lionel Messi.
I agree, because I feel like we've talked about Sesame Street before.
Ooh.
Maybe you saw it?
I don't think that I saw it, but I feel like we've talked about it, and I don't know why.
Okay.
And maybe we didn't talk about it, but I feel like me
You
or somebody in your
dreamt
group. Yeah, maybe, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like it came up when we were doing like our math on the streets or like our. I feel like somehow.
Related to street?
Or you could be like, you're making crap up and you're totally wrong, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hypnotizing you
Yeah,
to
I
make
know,
you
'cause-
believe.
No. So what are you going to do? Go.
I think I'm
Yeah,
leaning
you
into
choose.
the. I think I'm leaning into the messy one being the furthest, the lie.
Okay, same. All right.
Okay, you got me. I
Really?
did not play with Lionel Messi, no. I played with Iniesta, another legend and good player, not as well known in the US, but not with Lionel. So as Kaplinski said, there has to be something true in the lie, right, to
yeah.
make it believable. But I won a trip to Lisbon thanks to knowing, because the interviewer or the conductor of the show thought that it was a memorizing thing. But the Fibonacci sequence is just adding.
Right.
So he was like challenging me, you're a math teacher, so I'm gonna test you. Do you know the first 20 digits of the Fibonacci sequence? And I'm like, if you give me time, 0, 1, 1, just adding. And he was like, oh, you're a nerd. And, no, I can add 2 digits. Right? And keep the pattern, right? So that was me winning the trip to Lisbon. And then, yes, I was part of the opening of Sesame Street.
That is cool.
Yeah, in the Spanish version.
That
I
is
said
neat.
I waved to the camera for like 3 seconds, but of course all my village was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
You still getting rich off the royalties of that? Yeah.
Exactly. Not a single euro. Yeah. But there you go. And my story until here, and I'm glad that you said that I look young, much younger than Leo Messi, so I'm not that old. But my story until here is a story about I used to be an engineer, not anymore. Then I used to be I became a high school teacher, math teacher, and not anymore. Then I became elementary teacher. I turned my eyes into what was going on, right? My kids were coming to me in high school with a lack of foundation in algebra, and that fostered my interest doing a little research, starting my PhD in elementary and the foundations, which I thought they were like easy peasy, an easy PhD. And no, it's deeper, it's very deep. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper in any grade level. I stopped being an elementary teacher and I became an associate professor at the university back in Barcelona, my hometown in Spain. And then 3 years ago, I, along with Innovamat, the math organization that I currently work for, we started to work and partner with American districts and figuring out our American dream, little by little. There you go.
And what part of Spain are you from?
Barcelona, Catalonia, yeah.
Barcelona, okay.
Yeah.
So northeast of Spain.
And have you ever done the running with the bulls?
Oh, no.
No.
That's Navarra.
Okay,
and
so okay.
Pamplona, and it's a dangerous business.
Yeah.
No. It's
Okay.
it's dangerous. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So you talked about the American dream. I know that you were just kind of using that as a phrase.
Yes.
What's your, what are you working, like, what is your hopes for Innovamat in the United States? Like, what does that look
So
like?
basically, I would say that we started being teachers that were doing PD for the Spanish government and for the Catalan government in Barcelona. We were seeing that PD was great, but then after 1 year or 2 years after the PD, everything fades away. Teachers go back to the comfort zone, as we all do. So we decided to create then and write down our ideas in a curriculum, because that's what drives change, or at least fosters change faster than just PD. We keep doing PD. And honestly, most of our sources are American sources. We read American literature. We read American research. We follow the NCTM. We came to the NCTM a few times, and we are reading American researchers and what you do, or you say that you do, because it's different, and every class and every state is different. So we thought it was worth exploring if what we were following and the research site was happening in the classrooms, and sometimes yes, sometimes no. As in any other system, it has its flaws and its good parts. So yeah, that's like circling back, right? Our American sources, our research comes mainly from America. So let's go. We came to the NCTM conference through 2-3 years ago, and we were like, wow, it's true. These teachers are amazing. But then somebody told us, Trina Wilkinson, actually, the former president of the NCTM, told me, Albert, don't be naive. This is a very small sample. America is big, as any other country. It has great teachers and not so great teachers, people who is doing his best, people who is not doing their best, and it's just a system, right, with things to figure out and to learn and to improve. And driven by that, we're now partnering with a lot of schools, mainly in the East Coast for now, but now we're trying to figuring out California with a new framework, because at the end of the day, it's very aligned with what we think, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like home, and also Spanish connections. So Latino power. Yeah, there you go. It makes sense for us.
So you talked about it's very aligned. You use that word.
Yes.
Talk about that. What are some specific things that speak to your heart in terms of like the CMS California Math Framework and how it aligns with your thoughts?
If I had to choose just one, and I am not, because then I'm going to develop, but it's the interest on going beyond content, right? Content is the excuse. You can change the standards. You can talk about content as much as you want, but this is not enough anymore. Math is not just content. It's what you do with this content. So call it math processes that for a while were the standard. Now it's mathematical practices. Call it however you want, but we have to go beyond content, and that's very clear in research. It's very clear. You can find books from the 40s, from the 50s that say problem solving needs to be at the center, and we have been knowing and reading that for a long time, but still it's hard, and it's hard because probably the system has some constraints that don't allow this change to happen as fast as we would like, and sometimes it's frustrating. It's part of the journey. But I think that if I had to choose one, it would be the math practices as you know them now, or the math processes, so problem solving, reasoning, making connections. That's what resonates the most. Because then Every 4, 10, whatever, in any country, we work with Mexican schools, we work with Latin American schools a lot, and with Italian schools at Innovamat, and you see the same process in any other country. This shift from only content to also competencies and competency-based learning. I think that would be number one. Then there are many, many other things. And for me, at the core of while I'm teaching, while I'm modeling in a classroom, in an American classroom, or while I'm observing a teacher and giving feedback, for me, what is very helpful is to keep at the center the idea of a rich activity. And I say purposefully, is that a word in English? Purposefully?
Yeah.
I say purposefully activity and not task. And I would like to dive a little bit into that because for me, and it's not my idea, of course, we follow, we stand on shoulders of giants, as Newton said. For me is the combination of the task and the management of the task. That's the activity. And it helps me put the teacher at the center, right? The task can be great. The task needs to promote the mathematical content from the grade that you're targeting. Yes, okay, check. The task needs to foster or provide opportunities to foster problem solving, connections, communication, persevere. Okay, check. The task needs to promote also soft skills, collaboration, listening to each other, the perseverance as well. Yes, check. But now, any task is dead until the teacher takes the task and brings it to the students. And there is when the management comes into the equation. And that's fostering a great environment, the class culture, right? When you're reading a book, you have like a contract with the author of the book. You read the book, and if after 10 pages you're like, okay, I like this novel, I will continue. And then in page 50, it shifts radically or changes, you feel betrayed. Same happens with the kids, right? You have to set the culture as soon as you can. And of course, every teacher has its own culture, but the moment you can, you have to set your environment. Are we allowing mistakes? Are we fostering failure as an engine for success, and so on and so forth? And then how do you assess? Because I was reflecting about this a lot in the US. You are much more in elementary, which is now my focus, much more data-driven. And that in theory is great, but then state testing in 3rd and 4th grade is crazy, and it's very hard to drive change when state testing is so hard and on teachers and on admins and on schools. So at the end of the day, assessment is what drives also change, right? Funny story, when we started in our region in Spain, in Barcelona and Catalonia, it was because the government, from one year to another, following the principles and standards of the NCTM, among other sources, said, you're not assessing the kids, and by assessment I mean grading. I know assessment is much more, but grading. You're not assessing only content anymore. You're going to assess problem solving. So I need a grade for every kid in problem solving by the end of the year. From 1st grade to 6th grade, that's elementary in Spain. I need a grade for connections, I need a grade for reasoning and proving, and I need a grade for communication and representation. The moment they did this, of course it was crazy. Everyone was crazy, because it's not easy to assess that, but change started. Because now the parents understand better, and schools understand better, and we have not sorted it out. It's not easy, but there is this motor of change, because now the kid will value it. And I've seen great teachers in the United States with a beautiful poster in the classroom with 8 mathematical practices. But then kids are not stupid. They know what you value. So it doesn't matter you have a fancy poster. By the way, Spanish classrooms are much more serious. I am kind of overwhelmed. I have an overdose of like sugar when I'm in an American classroom. It's like full of posters and sentences. I don't have a squared feet. Right, I was about to say square meter, and then I said square feet of the whiteboard to write anything. No, we use the screen, but I need a whiteboard. I need to write something down, right? So the posters, this aspirational like willingness to change is great, but then reality, right? Reality happens, and yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you are thinking about these tasks, how do you know you found a good one?
So you ask about the task, right? Before the management happens,
Yeah.
right?
Let's kind of unpack that, because I feel like you kind of laid out 2 very distinct pieces of this. And part
Yes.
1 is the task.
The task.
Yeah.
But how do you know that you found a good task? And then we'll jump to the next part. Yeah.
It's a hard question, because a great teacher could make a very boring task much better. But then, of course, the better the task, the potential of the task, the easier for the teacher to dig some gold from it. So I would look for three things. One is that it fosters content that is relevant. And I love the word relevant because it's very like back in a purposeful way, right? It's relevant to who? To you, to the standards, to the kids at that moment. And I don't mean necessarily to go to a Taylor Swift context or
Right.
Pokemon context. That sometimes just an easy task on how many ways would you do, or in how many different ways can you arrange these numbers to very like no context, but very deep mathematical task is great. And so content needs to be relevant. And also between, as Peter says, right in the book, between too hard, which is frustrating, and too easy, because then it's boring. Just in between with 25 different kids or 30 in the classroom, very difficult. But that's number one, content is relevant. Two, it gives you more and more opportunities to foster the practices, the mathematical practices, right? The more math practices it fosters, the better. And then when we assess them, we don't have to go crazy. And because I did the first years of teaching, I need to assess all the mathematical practice. No, you wear one glasses today, one pair of glasses. Today you're about problem solving. And that's what you're gonna dive into. And tomorrow it will be connections, or in a week it will be connections, and you keep doing, and then it starts changing, right? Not everything overnight. So content, processes, or practices. And then recently I am more and more, and it's not my expertise, but I'm more and more interested into the soft skills. You know, this perseverance, this being responsible, being accountable for or responsible for what you're doing in the classroom as a teacher and as a kid, and collaboration, listening to each other. And again, thanks to the assessment, you can make kids value this more than even the content, right? I don't care that you can add. If you cannot listen to your partners, you are not going to pass the subject, right? And the moment you start acting like that, without being too hard, because of course we are talking elementary, that's when. But the task can be rather boring. Let's think 48 plus 27. No one would say that this is a rich task, potentially. But if anyone here could imagine how you would enrich it, do you have any idea? Like, okay, first let's solve it. Let's get rid of that part. 48 plus 27, and how would you do it?
Well, I could see a variety of, like, first off, that's naked numbers, right? No context.
Yeah, no context.
So I could imagine kids coming in with the understanding that addition is joining things together and joining like units together. So they could have that kind of limited understanding, and maybe they have a working understanding of base 10 blocks.
Yes.
And then you say, good, use your base 10 blocks to show us whatever you said, 47 plus 28.
Whatever, yes.
And what does that look like with our base 10 blocks? Let's mush these things together. And it's inefficient, but what they're doing is developing this rich conceptual understanding. So, I mean, that's an idea.
No, yeah. Asking them to represent. And so you see, that's going to the process of communication and representation, right?
Absolutely.
So, or using tools appropriately, one of the mathematical practices. So you see how enrichment naturally drives you to the mathematical practices at its best? Another idea?
So I was thinking about number lines and how I'd leverage the
Okay,
number
another
lines
representation.
as a visual,
yeah.
right, to help me kind of think and unpack that. But which oftentimes, though, especially in our lower grades where this would typically appear, for whatever reason, teachers feel like the number line isn't a tool they have to power, right? Like they feel like they can't, even though second grade it's in the standards.
It's in the standards. That's funny, yes. I'm glad you said it.
You walk into a lot of classrooms and for whatever reason, it's too early to teach or they're not ready for a number
But then
line.
it's too late.
Right. Because then you wait until fifth grade where they actually have to use it to solve some stuff, and it's
a door to negative numbers, to understanding fractions, right? It's a door to even to coordinates, right? Two axes of coordinates and functions. These are two number lines. So the sooner the better. Yeah, I am a big fan of the number line. But I understand the resistance because for me, it took me, 7-8 years of teaching. I was teaching the number line because I believed in what I read, but honestly, in my head, I was doing the algorithm. Because when you know the trick, it's hard to, and we have to acknowledge our limitations and our contradictions. But now recently, two years ago, I found myself doing 48 plus 27 compensating, and that's thanks to the doors that the number line opens, right? I do, okay, I know that it's 48, it's almost 50. I'm going to pretend it's a 50, quoting Jennifer B. Williams. I'm going to pretend it's a 50 plus 25, the two that, and that happens much easier in the number line rather than in the algorithm.
Right.
So it's a thinking tool. What I find with my kids, or I say my kids, but I go in one day and I leave. It's so I don't now anymore have the continuity, but I love to think that they are my kids or that I'm helping them. Some of them just pretend to use the number line. So they do the numbers on the side, and then they say, yeah, Mr. Albert loves the jumping, so I'm gonna just jump. It's hard. It's hard. The moment you teach the algorithm, I'm not against many parents in family nights, like, you're against the algorithm. I am not against the algorithm. I am against starting with the algorithm.
Yes.
Like we have this saying in Spain, right? In Spanish, no empieces la casa por el tejado. Don't start the house building the roof. That's the last part you should build. The algorithm. I was in a fourth grade class this year. One month ago, early October, and they were teaching with one of our sessions equivalent fractions, which, by the way, fractions start way earlier in the U.S. I don't know if you were aware of this, than in the rest of the world. Typically, in any other country that I work in, they start in 5th grade fractions or in 6th grade. Formal fractions. Of course, a half, a quarter, that comes naturally, but formal fractions in the US start in 3rd grade. Yeah. Probably because, many explanations could be found, but probably that your measurement system really promotes fractions, right? You go on the road, half a mile, we don't need that in Europe, or in the rest of the world, we just 500 meters and move on, right?
It really kind of demands the need for it, right? Because
yeah, it connects with your reality, so I understand, but kids are not developmentally ready to understand fractions in 3rd grade. And the proof is that teachers in 3rd grade teach fractions, in 4th grade they start over, in 5th grade they start over, in 6th grade they start over, and so on and so on and so on. Yeah. So they were teaching them never heard of it in Spain, the butterfly method.
Oh.
To compare fractions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So they start by saying to the kids, the teacher starts by saying to the kids, okay, we're gonna do equivalent fractions. Before jumping into the session, let me share this with you, a little trick that I use. And I was like, no, this is going to kill any thinking for this classroom. Yeah. But of course, I'm observing, I have to be positive and so I stand aside, I don't intervene. And then the teacher explains the butterfly method. So the moment the kids start practicing on their own in their little notebooks, there's a kid comparing 1/4 against 3/4. So the kid goes with the butterfly method. And I'm looking at them and I'm like asking this group of kids, couldn't you compare these two fractions just looking at the meaning of them? But I know the trick, right? So I just go for it and I follow the steps. And kids these days, and I start to sound a little old with this kind of sentences, but I find kids these days very pro following steps, right? Sure. They like that.
But how much of that, though, is like to the butterfly method? Might that be the teacher's only way in which they thought about, understanding proportional reason, right? Yes. And so that's what they fall back on. And maybe the example that they had in the book might have been a nice to have, but I don't feel super comfortable with it. So they kind of gave an easy out because they needed the easy out themselves.
That's true. And that's one resistance of implementing these rich tasks, right? That you need the teacher to be knowledgeable and to be informed and to be trained. That's why we go for a strong PD. But we were talking about this with Peter Lilja. I was reflecting with him and sharing this thought, and he was very open to this thought. The building thinking classrooms is a wonderful idea. We all would like to have these kind of classrooms in our own. But many teachers, or some teachers, I don't want to generalize, some teachers read it thinking that it's a method or an algorithm that they can follow acritically so kids can just start thinking. But if you as a teacher don't lead by example and don't observe and commit mistakes and make mistakes and accept them and work on them, and it's very hard and very unlikely. So in this case, right, with fractions, you probably have to unlearn. As I was saying before, it took me 8 years of teaching the number line before I unlearned the algorithm and I was able to use naturally and not faking it. Fake it until you make it. But as you said in a previous podcast, so at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge our limitations and say, yeah, we need to relearn these and we're gonna struggle, but we want kids to have this productive struggle, but then are we ready for productive struggles as teachers?
Right. I think, when you think about the chicken and the egg kind of a thing, it's like what has to come first. And we have kids growing up with a crappy kind of math experience. Then they become teachers
yes.
and they just replicate that same crappy experience. And so this cycle continues. And so where do we break the cycle? How do we do that? And I'm convinced we start with teachers. We got to start with the adults with killer, awesome professional learning.
Yes.
And it's going to have to be sustained, ongoing, very, very tied to just math, because they need to learn the math. That's where we're going to break the cycle. And so I think that's one of the neat things that I know about you and Innovamat is you sell you design curriculum.
Yes.
But
we started as PD.
Yeah,
professionals, right?
you still do the PD. It's like that really good curriculum is just a start, but good curriculum in the hands of an ill-equipped teacher is shit curriculum. And so the way you make that good curriculum is to support the teachers.
It's learning by doing at the end of the day, right? And lesson study is a method that we are inspired sometimes by. But then the problem is the time, right? I was reflecting about this recently with social media and stuff, and I did not come with an idea yet. And I'm sure there are thousands of ideas out there. But why do we all know what a good soccer player is? We all can list 10 skills that a good soccer player should have. Even if you never played soccer, you can envision that. You have
Duane's got 6.
He has them? So you're only missing 4?
I'm only missing 4. I was this
Almost
close
there,
to being Lionel
almost
Messi, yeah.
There you go.
Speed and accuracy are 2 of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, but then we don't have many opportunities to see good teachers. I cannot envision a TV show that is, the teacher of the month and goes on TV and of course that's not happening, but how many time do we spend visiting other teachers and it also it's not teachers' fault, it's the system that doesn't allow you, that you go day by day and you live like this, right? You don't have time to stop, to reflect, to talk with other teachers.
Well, I think we haven't defined well what math is and what good math instruction is. And then, so when we then start saying, well, what is a good teacher? We end up using judgments like, well, she's nice to the kids. And if I'm a principal, like when I'm a principal, it's, well, I don't get a lot of parent complaints. So it's like our definition of what a good teacher is really cruddy. And so if we really make an effort to define math, define really good math instruction, and then support the heck out of teachers to get there, now we have a way to talk about what is a good teacher. It'll still include all the soft stuff like
and
relationship building with the kids and all that sort of stuff, and no complaints from the parents. But it'll also be built on a foundation of content knowledge.
Nobody said it was easy, right? But it's also, and Spain has the same issue as the US or many other systems, that being a teacher is not like super well considered or retributed, or the prestige that the profession has, right? In my family, I studied a lot to become an engineer, and then after months working as an engineer, I said, this is not good for me. I want to be a teacher. And my parents, they were not disappointed at me that I wanted to be a teacher. I'm like the 4th generation of teachers in my family, but they were like, after all this study and after all this effort, now just a simple teacher, which for me it's one of the hardest. It's much harder than being an engineer, for sure. And it's much more social and much more human, right? And I love it, but it's hard, and we have to acknowledge that it's hard and that it's a never-ending journey, right? And you have to enjoy it as it is, because in the US you have also this problem that many teachers are quitting and going to.
Well, and it really is here just like there, right? It's kind of looked at as a less than profession, right? It's I was going to go off and do something great, and I decided that I was going to be a teacher, right?
Totally.
Because that big vision didn't work out, right? Which is kind of sad. Like,
it is sad.
And I think that we know that, but hearing you kind of say it, it's really brings it back up. And it's, how do we help? And it's a society problem, right? It's a society has labeled it and led us to believe that that's the way it needs to be. But how do we help teachers find the value that they're bringing? You know, maybe society hasn't recognized it yet, but how can we, when we're working with teachers, to help kind of...
I mean, I don't want to be naive. And first, if the salaries were super competitive, half of the problem would be gone, because I think it's part of the motivation that, I mean, if you need a side job to live, right? And I don't know if in California that is the case, but I know people that need it can be the case, right? And so that's for granted, and maybe it's not in our hands. And then it's, I think, following your line of thought, it's redefining math education, and then making it fun in the good way. Not fun per se, but fun as a consequence of thinking. What I love about math, and I'm not a mathematician, but is that math talks back to you. Mm-hmm. You talk to math, and math, you cannot tell a kid, okay, you check your essay in ELA, right, or in any other subject. You check your essay and see if it's right or wrong. Right. But you can tell a kid, check your math and see if it's, how do you feel? What do you feel it's a right argument? You feel it's wrong? And why? It's not that, because math is a judge in itself. It is an entity that lives there, right? So it talks you back. I am rereading these days a short essay. If you didn't read it, you should, because it's an amazing essay. It's very heartbreaking. Heartbreaking, thank you. Heartbreaking. Oh, the conjugation.
I don't know.
No. It's a little bit heartbreaking, but it really helps you. Maybe you know it. It's by Paul Lockhart. He's a mathematician here in California. It's called A Mathematician's Lament. So yes. Do you know it?
Very well.
Very well.
Yeah.
It's I think that drives my vision these days, right? Like, we're not understanding math, honestly. And me being an engineer and having used math as a tool, but not as a thing in itself, as an art or as a language or as a, call it however you want, as a thing, right? That is there. It really makes people not understand what math is, and then we see it only when we do two numbers. That a mathematician does not do numbers anymore. That's computer machine work, right? It's about patterns. It's about seeing the world. It's more close to an artist, honestly, being a mathematician, right? Yeah. But that's not what society thinks or what we think. I caught myself many times thinking as math as a tool, right? So that would be first step, but it's very hard. But we have countries that, for instance, Northern Europe, I think is a reference in this matter, that they value a lot the profession. So it's like becoming a doctor or becoming a lawyer to want to become a teacher, right? That's another step, an important step that people that in my classes at the university, and I am missing them already this year because I'm here in the US based now, and I am not teaching at the university anymore. But in my classes, 80 people, I was asking them at the very, very first day about their math identity. How do you feel about math? And I don't have the data, but 85% of the people there, not good at math, not interested, suffering, anxiety. And that's a small sample, but that's the feeling among teachers in general. And then I had to tell them, I am your math professor this term. They were like, okay, let's see. But it's like you have to fight against, right? Every time when you explain what you do, how do you feel to a third person, right? What do you do? I'm a math teacher. Oh, the answer is never, oh, so that's so cool. I mean, maybe sometimes, but we have a long journey there.
And they typically unload all their math feelings on you as soon as you say that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, in high school or in whatever, like, and they just tell you their whole math story almost immediately because they, for whatever.
I loved math until it got to algebra, and then I hated algebra. Or I loved it all the way up to algebra, and I didn't understand the geometry. And
because the approach we have in general, not in the US, in general, is you like it until you don't.
Yeah.
Because there is a moment, it might be sooner or later, that math education, as it is in the traditional approach, which is a broad way of calling it, it will fail you eventually. I was one of the best students in my class in high school, but then in college, I was just memorizing. So the moment the moment it fails to you, then you feel disappointed, and you're like, I'm not good at math. Maybe I am not that intelligent, because that's another thing. I heard Vanessa Vakarian today here in the conference, and she was like very, very, very concerned about the thing is that we match math with intelligence, and you would think that that's good, but that's terrible. It doesn't help math, or it doesn't help intelligence, right? So because the moment you don't know something about math, it's like you feel that you're not as intelligent, right? Mm-hmm. I tried to record. That's a funny story. I tried to record my grandma. She's wonderful. She's 94. She doesn't speak English, so she won't understand a single word of what I'm saying.
But hi, Grandma. Like, you know,
Yeah, hi, Grandma.
Hola, yaya. So I wanted to record her this summer. She's 94. She's an amazing cook. Spanish food. You don't have a chance here. So so I was like, okay, Grandma, I know how life works. I don't want you to go yet, but just in case, let's record some of your secret recipes, right? Let's record it. And she starts talking. I have beautiful voice notes in my phone that are gonna stay there forever. She starts talking. She doesn't know a single step. She just flows. Okay, Grandma, how much of this? Well, it depends on how many people do we have. Okay, but I can do the proportionality. Just give me for 4, and then I will divide or multiply. I'm good at that. Don't worry. Just give me the recipe for 4, and I will do the numbers. Well, it depends. If you have garlic, you do this. If you don't, you can also use that, but also that. But I don't have an oven at home, so what could I do? Oh no, but you can use the microwave for this, but not for that. But there's a lot of exceptions. A lot of it. She's flowing. I would love to see kids doing math as my grandma cooks, not following a book. And now millennials, my generations, I don't have garlic, and the Instagram recipe says you add garlic. I panic. I just close it and I go Uber Eats, right? I'm not cooking anymore.
New recipe, yeah.
Yeah, I cannot. I only follow steps, right? So that happens with math, and eventually with math education as we know it, right? So eventually it will. This approach, that is the key. Eventually it will fail you. Sooner or later it will fail you. And if it doesn't, congrats for you, but that's a very tiny part of the population that is not significant or relevant, or it's a problem.
Well, it fails, but that's because it's built on this foundation of success means answer getting, and that not really the thoughts that are going and the processes that are going on behind all of that. Because, Fermat's last theorem, when he proposed, hey, can we find an A, B, and C such that A cubed plus B cubed equals C cubed?
What a wonderful question.
What a wonderful question. And it took 500 years of failure before we finally got the answer. Now, we would never say the mathematicians for those 500 years were not math people because they couldn't get the answer. So math isn't really, you're not a mathematician because you can get the answer.
Absolutely.
You are a mathematician because you're doing stuff. And
you're thinking.
Yes, and now the answer is always nice. That's why we keep working on it, and it took us 500 years to solve that problem. But
it's the journey, right?
Right, and that's what we need to do is help people understand that they are math people, but not because they get the right answers, that would be nice, but they're math people because they can think mathematically, and they can do stuff to math in terms of what they understand. If it ends up with the right answer, wonderful. If it doesn't, we'll help you. But you're a mathematician because you're behaving that way, not because you're getting the answer.
100%.
Yeah.
Good thing is that AI these days, maybe this podcast, when they listen to it in 10 years, it's completely wrong. But today, AI is terrible at thinking.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not thinking. It's not AI. It's just a language model that it's getting better and better, of course, and we might all use it. But the other day I was trying, because we were preparing with Laura and Cecilia, my colleagues that wrote the foreword of Peter's book in Spanish. We were working on a presentation, on a workshop that they are holding in Barcelona in 2 weeks. And they were sharing with me the activity that they want to do. It was a wonderful activity, very simple. I can share it with you if you want to try it. So you have a deck of cards, or a set of cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with numbers, the natural numbers. Okay. You have 3 trays. Right? 3 trays, and your job is, it's a game that you can play on your own or in a team. Your job is to place cards one by one in one of the 3 trays. I know this is terrible for a podcast format, but
that's
just
okay.
Keep following me, okay?
It.
3 trays, and I have a deck of cards with numbers. So I have to put numbers until I cannot put more numbers, and your score, right, or the goal is to get as high as you can. Right, what's the rule? What's the secret of the game? It's that if in a tray you have 2 cards that add up the number you're going to place, you cannot place it in that tray. So let's say I put 1 and 2 in the first tray, I cannot place number 3 in the first tray because 1 plus 2 equals 3. So I have to go for another tray, right? And keep going. So that's a very simple game. And I was like, for fun, saying, okay, let's see if ChatGPT or whatever is able to solve it. Completely, not even grasping the beginning, and it's a very simple task. Content-wise, going back to the framework, content-wise, addition.
Right.
First grade. You could do this in first grade. Process-wise, that's hard. I was asked the other day by a teacher in a private school, what do you think about acceleration? Like, accelerating content should be your last solution. You should accelerate in practices. Go deeper. You can do deep math with addition.
Yep.
You don't need to go to multiplication just because the kit is good. Just go deeper in the mathematical practice. You have a beautiful framework in the US and a beautiful excuse to go deeper in the mathematical practices. In this case, this task, I'm not spoiling the solution for you. It's very hard. I mean, or it's engaging because it's very simple. And again, it's low floor, high ceiling. No, the differentiation is there, which is another trait of richness, right? That invites everyone to the party. And it's very simple. Any kid can start placing cards and checking if it works, if it doesn't. Finding the highest number and what's your strategy. That can take you a full afternoon of fun and joy and beers.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, it has been a great conversation, Albert.
Absolutely.
I'm almost done with.
I know, I'm almost done with my beer,
yeah.
so we have to be done with it.
It's got to be, we're running out of time here, but thank you for coming and joining us, and thank you. You know, we should shout out Albert. He was supposed to be on earlier today.
We had a more chilled and relaxed
and I
session.
couldn't do my job right, so he graciously agreed to come join us after hours today, and so we got to make sure we got that conversation in. So thank you for being here and doing that.
Thank you.
And you will be with us for Central, correct?
Oh, yes.
So that'll be March 7th and 8th?
Yes.
Nice.
I will be with you in Central. I will be in the CMC North as well, which is coming very
You guys
soon.
you have a session at North?
I have a session in the CMC North. I wait you all there.
Oh, good.
All right, fantastic. And do you guys have booth space also at North? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys will be there. So you guys should go check out Innovamat.
There you go.
At CMC North. We'll be at Central as well. And I'm sure we'll get you back on another webinar or something here in the near future.
I'm always ready. I loved being with you, and I think we're thinking very similar things of mathematization.
Any closing thoughts, Duane?
No, I got it. This is wonderful.
Yeah. I had fun. I'm definitely going to be thinking some more after that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.